Thriller films have many kinds of conventions to attract their audience. As we decided on filming a crime thriller, we used inspiration from many different films, new and old. We decided to use a handful of the codes of conventions these films have shown in our opening sequence. The first film we took inspiration from was Goodfellas. In the first 2 minutes of the opening sequence, many of the codes of conventions in the genre were shown. Goodfellas opens with a tracking shot of a car. Due to age restrictions, we were unable to drive a car, but used the same sort of technique when following our character around London. Goodfellas also uses many whole body long shots to reveal the whole identity of the characters. We use this idea to denote the characters' very formal and expensive dress wear. We also use many different cutaways inserted in between scenes when changing from London to our flashback. We also were inspired by Goodfellas' use of a voiceover. After many hours of planning and writing this voiceover, we eventually found one in which connotes the codes and conventions of this genre. Thirdly, just like in Goodfellas, our opening scene contains different close-ups and extreme close-ups of the weapons we used. This was used to denote the codes and conventions of this genre, as weapons and guns are seen in every crime thriller film. The new released film Legend is a gangster film. My partner and me paid for cinema tickets in order to get a more recent and up-to-date piece of research on the codes and conventions of our genre. The film opens with a tracking shot following the main character through the streets of London. As our film follows a similar plot to the plot of this film, we decided to open our film a similar way. This links to Bloomer and Cat's theory, as people from the 1900s can relate to the events in which took place at this time. The film Legend also contains different establishing shots throughout the opening sequence. As both films are set in London, we decided to begin our opening sequence with a slow motion establishing shot of London. The pace of our opening sequence also varies throughout. We took inspiration from both of the previously listed films, as Goodfellas contains higher paced scenes, whereas Legend is much more slowly paced. Both of the films we took inspiration from also followed the 180-degree rule, causing us to follow this rule strictly. However, on the other hand, there was one time in which we crossed the line and broke the 180-degree rule. Just like in Goodfellas, the rule was broken during our more violent and most important scenes. The film Pulp Fiction opens using large amounts of two shots within their opening sequence. Pulp Fiction used this technique to conform the codes and conventions of this genre, which included brotherhood and family. We decided to use this idea to denote the codes and conventions we have showed in our opening sequence. The many two shots we have included are to connote themes of power and violence, as in the majority of our flashbacks, the dominant male character is always in the same scene as the weaker victim. The film Seven has a very dark and gloomy mise-en-scène. As our film and Seven are similar, we also use a dark and gloomy setting and mise-en-scène during our flashbacks. Darkness and mystery is one of the codes and conventions of this genre, so we use many different costumes and editing techniques in order to make the opening sequence as intimidating for the audience as possible. The caption and titles we used were based on the titles used in the film Goodfellas. The film puts its credits over a dark black background and in a white font. Our film also uses a dark background with a text in a white font. This connotes darkness and mystery, as well as making the actors and directors' names big and bold and outstanding, so the audience know exactly who featured in the film. In order to connote Bloomer and Cat's theory, we applied a 50s TV filter to our production. One of the codes and conventions of this genre is that it is set between 1900 and the 1980s. The 50s filter conforms this, as it shows our film is set during that time. This links to Bloomer and Cat's theory of personal identity, as people watching our film who lived during this time will be able to relate to some of the characters in the film. The Enigma code theory has also been used in our production, just like in Goodfellas, when a tracking shot was used to follow the mystery car. Throughout the production, the main character's face is not revealed. This leaves the audience wondering who they are watching and gives them many unanswered questions. All the opening sequences we have watched had very dominating non-diegetic sound. This technique is used to set the scene and to make the audience feel on edge. In order to give more enigmas, we decided not to use the typical tense thriller music and went with more classical western music. This also connotes that the film is set in the 1950s.